Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of Chatting Cinema. I'm Flynn.
I'm Gianni. That just fell.
Our clacker fell. So we're going to get started talking about Disney Plus today. So Disney Plus dropped last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it's been out a little under a week so far. And there's a lot of content on there.
Yeah.
So what have you been watching on Disney Plus?
Been watching The Mandalorian. I've been kind of going back into the archives. I watched High School Musical 1 and 2. I do want to start High School Musical, the series. I've heard good things about it. I've heard that it's really cheesy, but I think that's really in line with those original films. Because like going back and watching those today, I don't know. When I was younger, like I went to a High School Musical 2 viewing party, and I loved that movie. Bet on it. I wanted to be Zac Efron.
Yeah.
But and now looking at this new show, it does look like it maintains a lot of those original qualities.
Yeah.
And also kind of updates it to the culture of 2019. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But I love The Mandalorian. That's their flagship show.
Yeah.
So I think it's really off to the races too. People seem to be really digging it.
Yeah, it's so interesting with things like that with High School Musical, whereas you don't want to dive too much into the cheesiness because you know you'll get undue criticism, but at the same time, like, you're trying to keep the feel of the original and do something new, and you're kind of in, like, where do I stop the campy, and that's interesting. I haven't watched any of that yet. I did catch the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, which I'm absolutely loving. I think it's money well spent. I think that people were crashing Disney Plus the first day, and a lot of that was to watch The Mandalorian. I know that when I went to load it up on Wednesday morning, I don't want to say everything, but I tried a couple of things that were working, and the only thing that wasn't working for me right off the bat was The Mandalorian. I was getting an error code, and the Disney Plus customer service I don't think was ready to handle quite that much traffic at launch, so I didn't hear back from them. But eventually, like within like 30 minutes, it was working for me and everything was fine. And then I watched it that night, and I watched The Mandalorian episode 2 on Friday night on release as well. I've seen the first 2 episodes of The World According to Jeff Goldblum. That show wasn't what I expected. I didn't know much going in. The first episode is about sneakers, and the second episode is about ice cream. And it's a really fascinating show because you just sort of go on these journeys with Jeff Goldblum as he encounters literally anything with the most amazingly genuine sense of childlike wonder. And it's a really fascinatingly structured show because he finds different types of people in the realm of what the episode topic is and has these conversations with them. And so the first 2 episodes have had the third act, the person that he talks to, is somebody who creates these things. And so each has created a custom thing for Jeff Goldblum. So the first episode, he got a custom pair of sneakers from a sneaker designer in New York, I believe. And the second episode, he got a very wacky, personalized flavor of ice cream. So that's been a fun show as well. And I watched the first episode of the Imagineering Story docuseries because I love theme park stuff, and especially like Disney theme park stuff and parks that sort of go all out in theming and set building, prop building, audio animatronics, and things like that, and creating these experiences. So that was a really fun one to watch and sort of like pull the curtain back, and it's an interesting topic to delve into because so many people have talked about it already and documentaries have been made and people talk about it on YouTube and things like that, but to have something officially come from Disney about this process has been really fun to watch, and it really highlights a lot of the artists that you didn't see behind the scenes and the set designers and ride designers and the people making these animatronics. And you know, Disneyland and Disney World now and Disney as a conglomerate are sort of like world taking over giant things, but Disneyland was not a sure bet. So it's interesting watching the process behind that.
Yeah. I mean, and that kind of speaks to Disney Plus as well. I don't think that was a sure bet either. I mean, this was kind of in the works for a long time. I know Bob Iger started this process back before Netflix, I think, was
Yeah.
even a thing. So, and then Netflix really took off, and now here we are.
Yeah.
And 13 to 15 million subscribers on that first day. I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty wild. We don't know how much of that is people getting their free subscription and then
Right.
dropping off, or how that's all going to work. But already there are conversations about whether or not this service is going to survive. I mean, because a lot of the content on there now is stuff that won't be there until 2020, 2021 for some shows, some movies even, because of different contracts that are
Right.
already with services like Netflix. Like I know Thor Ragnarok won't be there until maybe the summer of 2020.
Last Jedi is not on there yet.
Yeah, Last
It's on
Jedi.
Netflix.
Spider-Man, will we ever see Far From
Yeah.
Home or Homecoming? I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
a
know.
great question.
Yeah, it's definitely murky right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's interesting the way they've decided to structure their original content as far as show-based content, and sort of go back to the television by reservation type system, where you have weekly episodes instead of dropping a whole season at once. Because I do think that that's going to sustain viewership in a way where they can sort of give themselves a cushion and say, okay, The Mandalorian is our flagship show at launch. We have 8 episodes of this series, so 7 weeks, I think, because they dropped the first 2 episodes in the first week. So 7 weeks of this, and then we'll get the next thing out, and then that's another month and a half, and then maybe 2 months, and then we'll keep releasing content that way in that sort of scheduling. So I am interested to see whether people hang on, because I know a lot of the buzz has been positive, and a lot of, the sort of weaponization of nostalgia is so effective, especially now with key demographics like millennials, loving stuff. Shout out to Mikey Newman for Movies with Mikey. He did a great episode on Blade Runner 2049 about this sort of concept of nostalgia and how companies know that nostalgia has addictive properties. And so you see Disney Plus and you're like, oh, I remember watching Darkwing Duck when I was a kid on Saturdays. And so you get it just for that. But where's the limit for that, right? Where's the limit of, okay, I watched X-Men the animated series and I heard the theme song again, and I watched DuckTales, and now where am I at, right? I think some of the there's some interesting debate. The day Disney Plus dropped, there was a tweet that went semi-viral, because the first tweet was a picture of the Disney animated library entirely on DVD and Blu-ray, with the caption "instantly obsolete" at the release of Disney Plus, and then the following tweet from this user was about Disney Plus's technical issues at launch. So kind of like an interesting physical media versus digital media. I get that some people sort of resent, like, I have this collection of these, I have all the Star Wars movies, and now do I really need this because I can go on Disney Plus? But digital is so much less tangible than physical. So it'll be interesting to see those things too, whether people sort of like back off because they're like, oh, I've spent hundreds of dollars building this collection, and now I can get it for $7 a month, $8 a month. So
Yeah. I mean, and then another thing about it being digital is that it's easier to steal. I mean, The Mandalorian is already one of the most popular shows pirated in the year. So I wonder how they're going to combat that, if they can combat that.
Right.
And I think that speaks to other streaming services coming out as well, is that piracy is just going to keep getting more popular as these streaming services launch, because not everyone wants to pay for 6, 7 different streaming services. But I don't know, it's just tricky. But I mean, you mentioned the interface too of Disney Plus and how there were technical issues at launch, but even today, I still feel like there are things that I'm missing. Like, I wish there was a recently watched tab, because, I'd like to pick up where I left off on certain shows. Like, I'm watching Clone Wars, for example, and I'd like to be able to have that option.
Right.
Because right now, I have to go into Star Wars, I have to look for Clone Wars, and then get back to wherever I was.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's kind of a little nitpick.
Yeah, it is interesting though, because Netflix has been around for so long now, and that sort of tried and true tested do you want to keep watching type system has been so effective for them, not just, to keep you like watching the show that you're watching and not leave Netflix, but also to, as soon as you're done, here's 3 more things that you might want to watch. And so you're never leaving and you're always sort of watching that next thing. So it is interesting to me that I understand the need to differentiate for Disney Plus, but I feel like that's done through content. So to not have those sort of basic features of like continue watching this and that's the first thing that pops up on your page, because it's nice and it's a clean uniform screen, and that's cool when you first launch it. But then when you're actually practically using it, it becomes a bit annoying. And I haven't experienced that yet because, like I said, I've only watched the 3 original shows thus far, and so I watched The Mandalorian, and then when I went to watch The Mandalorian episode 2 on Friday, well, The Mandalorian is all over the place on the
Right.
front of the screen because it's the first show. And then the Jeff Goldblum episodes, I watched one at one point and then one at another. But again, it's original content. It's right there. And then the Imagineering story, I only watched the first episode. So I sought it out, watched it, and then I didn't need to hit that watch next. So when you're going back and rewatching series, because I know a lot of people are really excited about the animated Marvel stuff being available to watch for them. Clone Wars is going to get revisited like by a ton of people, especially when the new season drops. So I have to wonder when that update will drop that fixes that, because it has to be inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And it's a little overwhelming too. I feel like there's so much content that Disney has to offer. And again, it's original and it's nostalgic. A lot of it is old. I mean, there's Phil of the Future is on there. People are going back to watch Lizzie McGuire, who's getting an updated show. There's so much coming, and it's interesting to see that what they have now is what they have now.
Right.
And I think it's good that they're doing this weekly release method. But again, until we see like the Marvel shows start to pop up, which Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's going to be first, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to check my release dates on that.
Yeah.
Because they've announced so many, especially like over the summer when they said that we are also doing Miss Marvel and Moon Knight and She-Hulk on top of these that are already based on characters in the MCU. There are so many Marvel shows coming. And an interesting thing that I'm curious to see with those shows is runtime. Because The Mandalorian has generated a lot of conversation because the first episode is just under 38 minutes. That's with credits. And the second episode is right around 30. So that's certainly not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was expecting episode 1 to be a couple minutes over an hour.
Me
and
too.
then each subsequent episode being like 55 minutes, give or take. So when I first popped that on and saw that runtime, I was like, whoa. And then I didn't feel it so much with the first episode, but the second episode felt like a breeze. As soon as it ended, I was like, wow, it's over? Like, where's that? What's coming next? And so that's effective in that I want to keep watching. And the runtime that's interesting, like, was that part of the conversation with having these weekly releases, to be like, okay, well, if we drop it in, the whole season in one day, everybody's going to watch it in 4 hours, and then they're going to leave the trial run. So is that part of the reason we have to keep releasing these weekly? And also budget. I mean, this show, The Mandalorian, is expensive.
Yeah.
And you can see it in every frame. And I think that that's paid off so far. It's hard to tell because I've quite enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but we still have 6 episodes to go. We don't know where the story is going. As far as I'm concerned, not a lot has happened so far, and I don't think that's a problem. It's just going to be interesting to see, like, this was a lot of money, and they're making it back, and they're Disney, and they can afford it, and that's sort of a benefit they have. But, yeah, I'm very curious to see going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, they're definitely really confident in the show, too. I mean,
For
season
sure.
2 is already underway in production, so it's definitely really interesting to see where that'll go. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and Disney Plus has been interesting to see as far as the streaming wars that are about to begin. It's, a well-made point that streaming services have now just recreated cable. because it seems like every network has announced their streaming services. There's CBS All Access, NBC is making their own streaming service, and that's why The Office is leaving Netflix, and HBO is launching their own streaming service, and they've been announcing left and right partnerships they've made and deals they've done. They're going to have DC streaming. They're going to have all their HBO stuff. They made a deal with Crunchyroll, so they're going to have anime programming on there. So, and they won the exclusive rights to stream South Park, and that was a huge battle with a lot of money involved. The last time I think a dollar amount was reported, it was up to $550 million for the exclusive streaming rights to South Park. But I think that as Disney Plus, continues to roll out, and as HBO Max starts to launch, one benefit that these two companies have in their streaming services are built-in original content. So Disney has decades upon decades of libraries full of animated movies they can put on, TV shows, and sort of like they have something for every demographic already on there. So you can get people in there, and then you keep making your original content. You're already getting bankrolled because people have these things that they like to watch. And as far as HBO Max is concerned, decades of HBO shows, and people are going to get it to watch Game of Thrones again, or they want to stream South Park. I know that South Park, I believe, is on Hulu right now. I don't think all of it, but they have the newer episodes as the seasons sort of get released. And as far as I know, that's a pretty popular program to watch on Hulu. So Netflix sort of started with other people's stuff and then started making their own things. And so to see Netflix continue to sort of have success and really just remain relevant in this landscape, it'll be interesting to see them continue to now lean on their original content as more and more companies are saying, well, this is ours again, and we're taking this back, and your customers aren't going to be able to watch it. Because, some of Netflix's original content has been so good. I think that for me, Stranger Things is the best show on television, as far as I'm concerned. Orange is the New Black was great. Haunting of Hill House was great. There's so much that Netflix does that has really been successful in the realm of original content, but they got there through licensing other people's stuff. So I think that one sort of advantage Netflix has is the niche in the market they've already carved out. So they have years of customer data. They know what people are watching. They know what people are liking. And that's sort of invaluable as we go forward with this. But are they going to have enough in their original content? And if people start leaving, are they going to be able to keep bankrolling that?
Yeah.
It's a question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think something that Netflix is still really young in the game of filmmaking is their cinematic releases, their feature-length films. I mean, Disney Plus has the remake of The Lady and the Tramp right now. How much are they willing to put out to combat what Netflix is doing?
Right.
We have The Irishman coming out, which is already set to sweep the Oscars, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
Marriage Story is coming to Netflix as well. So I think that it's been interesting to see them lean into the indie space and get these filmmakers like Roma last year from Corone, and then the year prior was when they had Mudbound, I believe.
Yeah. So
that will also be interesting because Disney is sort of not that. Like they have Fox and Fox Searchlight. So will they see that and say, okay, well, do we have to compete in the Oscars this way? I mean, every time Pixar releases an animated movie, it's sort of already nominated for Best Animated Feature, and it's probably 80-20 that they're going to win. So are they going to sort of look for awards and that type of quality content that way too? Speaking of Fox Searchlight, a great little film from Fox Searchlight came out semi-recently that we both got the chance to see. And we wanted to talk about it on here because I think we both really enjoyed it. Yeah. So I'm talking about Jojo Rabbit, directed by Taika Waititi. We are going to get into plot spoilers for this, so if you haven't seen it and you're interested in seeing it, which I highly recommend that you do, maybe stop listening now and come back and listen to our thoughts after you've seen the movie. But initial thoughts, what'd you think?
I really loved it. I think Taika Waititi took a really sensitive topic to obviously a lot of people. I mean, this is World War II. This is the Holocaust that we're talking about. And he was able to create something that was really born out of love. And I think that there is a heart pulsing and beating throughout this entire film. You really feel it. It was made with love.
Yeah.
And it's about love. Jojo is a lonely German boy in World War II who loves Hitler. He loves his country, and he supports everything that Adolf Hitler is doing. And that on paper sounds like something that maybe a studio wants to stay away from.
Yeah.
But Fox Searchlight gave Taika the reins. I don't think they really stepped on his toes at all during production, which is something that not a lot of other studios can say that they've done and not done. And I think it's been met with respective feedback. There are people who are offended by the film, and there are people who love the film, like us. So, yeah, that's how I feel. I really liked it. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I tweeted out right after I saw it that it's sort of 100% wears its heart on its sleeve. And I have so much respect for that, and I'm such a sucker for movies about love, and I think that when you sort of hear that, you're like, oh, like romantic comedies, but it's like no, not that, like that really, like you said, have a beating heart at their core, and are sort of about love being this powerful force that can overcome so many things. It's so sincere and it's so genuine, and like you were getting into, such a sensitive topic and a real risk, I think. I remember when, I guess it was when Fox Searchlight got the rights to release this movie that I first read the plot details, and I clicked on it because, Taika Waititi's new movie, Jojo Rabbit, what's it about? And I read the plot summary, and I read that he was going to be portraying Adolf Hitler in this movie, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's a choice. But I think that at this point you sort of just trust Taika and let him run with it. And I think that he handled it with as much grace and deference as he could, while still making it heartfelt and funny. And that is so hard to make something like this funny, especially in a way that's not mean-spirited. And some people think it's funny to just poke fun at the situation, and that's not how this movie is funny. It's funny with the character work that it does, with some of the slapstick humor, and sort of involving the bumbling members of the Third Reich, which I think was such a strength in the way that he portrayed the Nazis as sort of this group that are just like falling all over themselves, and picked an interesting sort of period to cover, and sort of we watch the collapse of the Third Reich in real time, and it's sort of just like getting more pathetic as it goes along. I loved that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that that's a really tough balance, and the way that he has you laughing in one scene, crying in the next in this film is just, it sends chills down your spine.
Yeah.
Some of these scenes. I wanted to talk about a little bit of the cast. Roman Griffin Davis as Jojo Betzler. I don't think he's done a whole lot other than this movie. He's a child actor, obviously, and it's so hard to find good child talent. And when you do, it's amazing to see on screen. Some other supporting actors: Archie Yates, plays Yorkie,
so funny,
his best friend in the film, so funny. Stephen Merchant playing like kind of a leader of the Gestapo, a little group of them. Thomasin McKenzie as Elsa Core. Just really, really good stuff. Sam Rockwell and Scarlett Johansson, they kill it in everything that they do. And I wanted to get into Scarlett Johansson's character, Rosie Betzler, in this film. Just a heartbreaking story of this German mother whose husband is fighting for the resistance, right? And he's obviously not around, probably dead.
Yeah.
And she's just doing what she can.
Right.
There's a really good line in the middle of the film. Jojo and his mom are just walking through the town square, and they see 4 people hanging, 4 bodies. And Jojo says, "What did they do wrong?" And his mom says, "They were just doing what they could," you know. And I think that speaks to a lot of German people during World War II that were just trying to help
Right.
any Jewish people that they could. Just really sad. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That line is so good, and it's revisited towards the end of the movie, because the movie kind of opens up with Jojo in the mirror, and he's hyping himself up to do all this Nazi stuff, which he thinks is so cool, and he's going to a Hitler youth camp, and it's framed like a summer camp, which I think is hilarious. That was so good. But he's in the mirror and sort of telling himself, Jojo Bachelor, Johannes Bachelor, do this, this, and this. And then towards the end of the film, after Jojo has kind of come to terms with a lot of this stuff, he stands in the mirror and he says, "Today, just do what you can."
yeah,
And that really got to me. This movie got to me in a way that I wasn't expecting going in. It really surprised me in all the best ways. And yeah, circling back to the cast, I mean, Roman Griffin Davis is a revelation in this movie. He is so good and so sincere, and Jojo as a character, who's someone who's 10 years old, goes so many interesting places, mentally and emotionally, as sort of the world as he perceives it crashes down around him, and he becomes aware of certain things. And so to watch that progression of him and his relationship with Elsa, Thomasin McKenzie's character, sort of evolve and go different places as well. It's so amazing that they were able to find an actor that portrayed that with such grace, and such sincerity, because that is not an easy role to pull off. And I think he did it in spades.
yeah, absolutely. And that all speaks to Taika Waititi as the writer too. The way that he was able to come at this story from the angle that he did.
Yeah.
I think that only Taika Waititi could have
Yeah.
made a film like this and have it work as well as it does. I also wanted to hit on Sam Rockwell's character. He is a captain, I guess, in the Third Reich, and he's kind of in charge of this summer camp,
Yeah.
kind of getaway for the Nazi boys. But he had so many layers to his
Yeah.
character. I think that was really cool that he was kind of this officer who wasn't really supportive or
Right.
fully supportive of what they were doing, but also was doing his job, right?
Yeah.
So many of these guys were just doing their jobs, as terrible as it was. But he was also clearly gay,
Right.
which I think was really interesting. So much. There's so many layers to the film.
Yeah, and I think that watching, Jojo gets so much screen time to sort of explore his progression as a character, but Sam Rockwell's character as one of the side pieces of this movie doesn't have a whole ton of screen time, but it is definitely interesting to watch him as somebody who, starts the film. Clearly something went wrong, and now instead of being on the front lines, he's in charge of the summer camp, and he's clearly bitter about it. And I think that as his character goes on and sort of realizes, like, the Nazis don't see people that aren't like them as actual human beings. They discard them like trash. And I think that he sort of goes through this process where, like, oh, even though I'm the prototype and I'm all about this and I'm buying in and I'm putting myself on the front lines, as soon as you put a toe out of line, you're trash to them too. And I think that that's something he reaches in the film, and it's so hard to have these side characters go through things like that, and have it translate so well through. And again, credit to Taika, credit to Sam for the performance, because it's all there, like, very clear, what his character is going through. And that's, a line of throwaway dialogue here, a change in body language there, things like that really communicate that story.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's so many feels to the film too.
Yeah.
I mean, it really feels like a lived-in World War II Germany, and I think they really accomplished the look of that super well. Just some other things, some other really hard-hitting scenes. The way that Rosie Betzler dies and the way that Jojo finds out is so haunting.
Yeah.
It starts out, he's putting up flyers in the town square, and he sees a butterfly on the ground, and he starts to follow it as it's flying, and he bumps in to her body hanging.
Yeah.
and I just thought like, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, people in my theater gasped. I mean, I did. I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, for sure.
It's shocking, and it's so brutal and hard hitting, and like, I mean, it just shows that how the Nazis had such disregard. I mean, he has no mother now, you
Yeah.
know, and he's living alone for the
Yeah.
rest of the film, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene for sure. And again, like things like that where like that probably shouldn't work. Like you should, if you're a director sitting opposite a studio head pitching a scene where a 10-year-old Nazi boy runs into his mother's hanging lifeless body, all because she was trying to rally resistance against the Third Reich. Like if I'm a studio head, I am probably sending you out of the office and never calling you again. And Taika did it where it's incredibly emotionally impactful, and it's an integral part of the scene, an integral part of Jojo's further development, and his realizations in this movie. But yeah, so I think that should do it for our review of Jojo Rabbit. Again, if you stuck around now, you probably didn't care about spoilers or you've seen it already. But if you liked what you heard and still feel like you can definitely enjoy it with spoilers, if you haven't seen it already, I would recommend going to see it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up episode 6. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere that you get a podcast.
Yep.
And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, as always, to Stockton University, SSTV, for allowing us to use the studio space, the equipment. The next episode that's going to be coming out, we're going to do another Star Wars retrospective on Empire Strikes Back. So looking forward to that and talking about that, and we'll see you then.
Yep.